previously on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along.
That's why I love to draw, and I wanna create Supa-Saturdays, Supa-Saturdays, Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, once again to Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along. Now, I've been caught a bit unprepared here. Now, you may have noticed that it's a different time slot. Now, of course, I'm normally here at 1 a.m. on a Saturday morning, Eastern time. But this show, Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along, normally goes out at 6 p.m. on a Saturday. But it swapped places. So now at 1 a.m. on a Saturday morning, Eastern, you're here with me with Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along, where hopefully you follow me in some exciting exercises. And at 6 p.m. will be Late Night Art Attack, now rebranded as Madness Art Attack. So I'm going to see you back here later on with Raul, as usual, talking all things pop culture and all the rest of it, and of course, drawing. But meanwhile, now, we're doing Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along, and we have a regular viewer named Texas Dave. And quite often he draws along with his daughter. But I don't think his daughter's going to be around at 1 a.m. in the morning right now. I mean, but you never know. You never know. Well, hopefully Dave joins us later, along with as many other people as possible. And this month, earlier this month, I launched a new book. And rather than speak too much, I'm going to play a trailer to show you what's happening this month here on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along. So let's have a quick look at what's going to be happening here for the rest of the month of July.
Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along welcomes you to How to Draw Characters from the THUNDERZONE July, a double celebration of America's 250th anniversary, and the launch of Jerome Judge Hinds' new book, How to Draw Characters from the THUNDERZONE. Launching on the first weekend. Every week we'll have Judge inviting viewers to join in selected fun exercises, taken directly from the activity book, How to Draw Characters from the THUNDERZONE, only from Amazon.com, and streaming exclusively via Madness Entertainment Group.
Nice one, nice one. Yeah. So all this month, we'll be taking extracts from my new book, How to Draw Characters from THUNDERZONE. And today, we're going to be drawing Captain Nova. Now, you can find this on page 89 of the book. So you don't want to see me. You don't want to see me. You want to see the good captain. So there I am, small in the corner. So we may be drawing later by an ex-intern of mine, Kale. He may be dropping by later to join in all the fun and games. Meanwhile, hopefully grab your pens, pencils, stylus, and all the rest of it, and draw along with me. We're going to be drawing Captain Nova here. Now, a lot of foreshortening. I chose this pose because brutal foreshortening, a lot of exaggeration, superheroing as I really like it. So here we go. First of all, I'm drawing digitally. I'm using Celsius Clip Paint Studio. So I'm going to make a new layer. But before I do all of that, look at me, getting ahead of myself. Let me play my music as customary. Now, where is it? Can you hear that? Where can you hear that? Yeah. Yeah, that's my usual background music. Now, the mood is set. Let's do some drawing, man. So you'll notice in the book, if you buy it, if you support me and buy the book, there's always a space for you to do your exercise. That's in the printed book, soft copy or hard copy. The digital copy doesn't have a space for you to draw. You would have to have a separate canvas. Even in saying that, I think that a lot of people who have bought the book may not draw in the book. They may use a separate piece of paper, which of course you can. But if you want to, it's an activity book. So in this space down here, I'm going to draw our Captain Nova. First things first, we want to make sure that our good captain is going to fit on the paper. So we're going to start, of course, with the all-important head. And if you've tuned into Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along before, you would know that I pin a huge amount of importance on the spine. So I'm going to start with his head down here. So if we look at the head, from the get-go, you notice it's quite elongated. That's because before I even started this drawing back in the day, I knew that I wanted Captain Nova to have his mouth wide open. That immediately dictates that the head is going to be quite deep because the mouth is going to be open. Now, how we're going to depict that will come later, but we're going for our basic skeleton and shapes to start with. So get your head in. Now, the spine. The head is a ball on stick, so there's a slight neck we can see. Look at the shoulders. We're drawing through the object. We can see the shoulder out the other side. Then it comes over here and it comes over. Now I put a node where there's a joint. So there's one shoulder joint out the view, but we draw it just to keep our trajectories and accuracy. There's the first shoulder. Now, because there's a lot of foreshortening, I curve my lines when I know I want to do a lot of foreshortening. So we curve this line, then we put in a joint. That's where the elbow is going to be. So let's continue with the spine to make sure that leg can fit in, as I mentioned. So the spine starts here and it loops under, and we can see it just misses the elbow joint. So I'm going to bend that spine under here. I tell you, I cannot express enough the importance of getting spine, shoulder, and hip movement going. Make a huge difference to the poses that you come up with. So there's that spine, and the hips come up behind and go underneath. So we're doing something here called drawing through the object, where even though a piece of detail may not be evident later on, you still go through with drafting it totally. So now we draw the rear end, and what I call the underpants, right? It's a looping, here it's a looping kind of curve. That's going to come down around here. Now here comes that all-important back leg. We've got a bit of movement in the upper thigh. There's the lower leg. And always gauge your distances. We can see here that the spine, left to right, is somewhere in the region of what the upper back leg is. Then it's put in that joint. Now comes the calf. Nice curve on the calf. Get some swing in that leg. Then it straightens out. And because we're dealing with a lot of force perspective here, we got a nice large foot behind. And for any one of you out there who likes to draw Spider-Man, take note of a lot of what's going on here, because Spider-Man explores a lot of this kind of draftsmanship. You've got a lot of bending of torsos and a lot of foreshortening of parts of the body coming very close to the camera. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, this is a new time slot for Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along. And one of the, I mentioned one disadvantage earlier. We had a nice regular viewer, Texas Dave's daughter, used to draw along with me. And I doubt very much you can make it at this time of the night now. But one part of, what should we call it? One piece of silver lining, let's say, is we normally wrap this up in 1.5 hours in the old time slot. But now we have slightly longer. We can actually stay here for 2 hours. So the clock is no longer ticking quite so abruptly, so to speak. So there, just drawing that arm in. Now I've got my trajectory on my arm slightly off there, I can see. I can see that my arm is more horizontal on the one that I'm doing as compared to the original. But you know what? I'm going to leave that because limbs can move. And of course, if you buy the book and you're doing the exercises, you want to try and keep things accurate. But they don't have to be exactly the same. Okay, there are certain things that you want to be consistent. You want costumes, basic dimensions of a body to be consistent. But in terms of limb movement, you can move things slightly less or slightly more because limbs do move. Of course, if this was animation, that would be tested to the max. So here's what I like doing now, for example. I like doing the shape and detail for a fist. First of all, I start with a large shape. This is telling me how big my front fist is going to be. So it's what I call a rounded square. So can you see the way how we're crafting this shape? Right, sketching is all about building up shapes. Not like this, not a single line, okay? It's all about building up the shape. So if you're drawing along at home, carefully build up those shapes. And for those of you who've tuned in here before, what do we always say? There's a saying that we have here, and it goes like this. Keep those pencils light. You heard what I said? Keep those pencils light. Of course, I'm working digitally, so it's not as important for me to keep those pencils light because I can just deal with something called opacity. But I like to practice people, whether digital or traditional, there are certain practices that you should try to maintain. So even when I draw digitally, I do try to keep my pencil light. So now we've got a basic shape of a fist. And we come in here and we drop in the knuckles. And we know I like a raised knuckle. So I'm going to put one knuckle here and the rest are slightly set back. So we can put one knuckle here, another knuckle there, and one on the periphery a bit higher, but it's a little finger. So we put in our skeleton here. Here's our raised finger. And on the outer part, we've got 2 joints that will depict thumb. Good. Our skeleton is coming in nicely. And underneath, there's going to be a hidden foot. We come in here. We'll drop that in here. Now I can see my upper leg is my fist. That's what I said. My fist is actually further away than on the original. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw an extra piece, right? Because this fist is moved. So now, in effect, we would see this ankle and we would be able to see this foot down here. So you're getting a bit of extra drawing here, okay? So if we're going to put in a basic shape for this foot down here, like the back foot, we can put in this shape at this point. A rounded diamond. All right. We've also got a blast coming out. And quite often, right at the beginning, whether it's a sword or a piece of power coming out, I would treat the powers of a character as an integral part of the skeleton. We plan out what's going on power-wise right from the outset. There. We've kind of completed our skeleton. Next comes what I call the fleshing out stage. So there's our skeleton layer. Make that red. I'm going to make a new layer now and call this FO as in fleshing out. So you can see here in the book, let me zoom in here. You'll see you've got the skeleton, then fleshing out shows you all of the contours and the basic shapes. So let's look at the basic shapes that we've got going on. Here, got to make sure it's big enough that you can see it clearly at home. So we're looking at the basic shapes. Get my black pencil. So let's re-establish the head. When we come to put in some of the lines of planning, we're going to fine-tune some of this in the next stage. So let's reaffirm the shape of the head. Now there's the neck underneath. And it's sunk into the body. So from this angle, the neck is something like this, because it's sunk into the body from this angle. And this is one of the later chapters in the book because it is foreshortening and I dare say a quite advanced subject. So this is you can see here, chapter 6, and it's in a chapter called Tough Stuff 3, foreshortening with forced perspective. So don't worry, if you buy the book, this is a later chapter. Don't get nervous. You're not asked to do something like this immediately. But I thought tonight, as I'm here with you, keeping you company, if you try to do anything from this, if you run into any problems, I'm here. I'm here to give you some moral support. So I'm just dropping in the shape of the arm. Here's the shoulder. Now we've got to be careful here now. We're getting into the foreshortening. So I often like to give as I'm plotting my foreshortening, it's a case of where you're coming from to where you're going. So I start at certain points, then I will jump over to where I want that item to finish. So here's where the wrist would be, but we can't quite see it. So we know that the circle of the wrist, if we draw through the object, it's going to be somewhere over here. Remember, keep those pencils light. We can lightly sketch that. Now we can join up the lower arm to this part here. And I'm going to make that the fist. So here, the actual joint of the lower arm, and that disappears out of view and it comes down. Make sure you get the volume of that lower arm. If you don't get the volume, you won't get the foreshortening happening. So then here, we've got the bicep coming in, and the bicep almost obscures all of the upper shoulder arm. There, that gives us the upper arm. Now let's look at the shoulder going into the spine. Now here's the back coming up here. I explained throughout the book that the more you know about basic anatomy, the better, because the book is not a complete manual, for example, on how to draw. Okay, you still need to kind of, if the more you know about anatomy, the better it will be. But certainly, there's a lot in the book that will help you in your journey of learning more about anatomy. So the chest is barrel-chested, right? Coming down here, and we curve that, and it goes behind. Now, as I mentioned before, the trajectory of my arm is not exactly the same here as it is in the original. As I can tell, my shoulder angle here is slightly longer. So the dimensions of the body are going to be slightly different here. So there's the waist. And we're going to put in what I call the underpants area. We double up the waist. So the leg is going to come over here. Okay, if we draw through the object. the body is going to come under here. And the lower torso is going to be over here. There, we're keeping that pencil light. Okay, we're keeping our trajectories happening. Then the back of him is going to come up over here and join up about here. If you're drawing along at home, of course, this, you can watch this back again. But I don't think I'm going too fast. I think you can keep up with me. And if we draw through the object, that leg is going to come over here somewhere, correct? And there it is coming up here. Then the lower thigh will come up here and then down here. And what I mentioned earlier about us having somewhat of a bit of extra anatomy, because the trajectory of my arm is not obscuring that bottom leg as much as the original. So here, this is the lower leg that we can see. And if we draw in the lower leg there, we are probably going to see his foot coming out here now. Good. Let's go for the back leg. Here's the knee joint. And the upper thigh goes up behind him. And of course, we bulk that leg up. That hamstring is tense. He's bending that knee. And he's got powers. He's got big muscles. So there's the ankle. Remember I mentioned about drawing your destination? Let's draw through the object. There's the width of his ankle, you could say. Now, we've got to make sure we get the volume of the lower leg correct. So there. Remember, joints are always slim. So you've got to come out and then back in for the joint. Yeah, good. Now we've got the sole of the foot here. Let's give that a little bit more of a shape, shall we? So we've got the instep, that's the inner foot. We come out there. We do the outstep. I really love the way how John Romita Sr. used to draw the soles of Spider-Man's feet. Beautiful. Okay, so here now from this angle, we can see the heel and a little bit of the side of the foot. I can tell you as a young kid, drawing this sort of thing, this sort of angle of a foot, was always one of the toughest for me. So now we come to the tricky part, that foreshortened fist in your face. So we've got the back of the hand here. Let's join up the back of the hand to where we think the fist then starts to materialize. There. And we can see the thumb comes down here. So there's the beginning of the thumb. So let's start with the index finger. Let's put in the knuckle. Remember the big finger, the middle finger is the biggest. Then comes down to the ring finger. And finally, the little finger, the pinkies on the edge. There. There's our index finger. Now, something I've got to be very careful of. We've all got something called an artistic footprint. And I have a nasty habit of drawing my index fingers larger than my ring fingers, than my middle finger, which should be the biggest finger of all. And sometimes my index fingers are simply too big. And here comes the thumb, wrapping around the bottom, and it just encroaches onto where the middle finger is. Okay, good. We got our basic fleshing out. Let's zoom in. There's our basic fleshing out of Captain Nova. Hopefully you're keeping it up at home. You're doing okay. And next thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we find the center of each part of the body. That's a major important part. Before I do that, I want to run a trailer again to tell you a bit more about the book, right? So let's just take a quick break here and let's have a look at the trailer for the book, and hopefully it further inspires you. But here's a bit more about the book in which the extract comes from.
Paying tribute and great homage to the United States of America on its esteemed 250th birthday comes How to Draw Characters from the THUNDERZONE Activity Book, a 188-page activity book that launches on July 4th, 2026. Written and illustrated by Jerome Judge Hinds, president of the Association of Comic Artists Singapore, comes the ultimate tribute to the birthplace that brought to the world the splendor of superheroes and comic books. Jerome is a creator and senior editor at USA-based THUNDERZONE Comics, and in the book, he shares with you the knowledge and methodologies of his work from over the past 8 years, all neatly wrapped up in a 10-chapter step-by-step tutorial. He covers full-length character construction, studies in hands and feet, secrets in foreshortening with props and weapons wielding, plus penciling techniques, inking, digital coloring, and even comic book cover layouts. It's all here and available in both soft or hardcover. And if you really can't wait to get your hands on the physical thing, there's always the digital guidebook edition available for pre-order now. How to Draw Characters from the THUNDERZONE Activity Book, with Jerome Judge Hinds launching Independence Day 2026. Exclusively available from Amazon.com. And launch streaming live only on Madness Entertainment Group.
Awesome. So you saw that, you heard that. So indeed, this is page 89 from the book. So we just got to all of the fleshing out. Just lean that head over a little bit more. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go through finding the center and the main planes of any object. So I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to call this DM, as in dimensions. In the book, you will find that dimensions are always depicted in purple. So what we do with dimensions is we find the front, back, sides, bottom, any plane of anything. So let's start with something simple. If we look at this lower leg here, the side of his leg is here. So we can put a contour here to tell us where the side of the leg is. This is also going to help us when we try to find the center of something, which is also very important. So if we come here to the hand, this is the side of the hand here, and the side of the thumb comes down here. If we look at the forearm, this depicts the side of the forearm. This would depict the side of the arm. If we look at his body, that is the side of the body coming down here. Look at the back leg. This twists, and the side of this leg is under here. The side of his body is just coming in to his lower part here. Let's look at the face. This roughly depicts the top of the head. The side of the head will be here somewhere. Hold on a second. Let's raise his face a bit more. So if we put the top of the head to be roughly in this area, and we can very basically say the front of the face is going to fall somewhere here. So now we've got the angles of the main parts of the body sorted out. And I like to do that as soon as possible because we want to get to the center of objects. I'll make a new layer. I'll call it CL, as in center line. Throughout the book, the center of everything is depicted in cyan. This. So let's go for the face first. This is roughly the center of the face. And you can start getting a bit of movement going here. See, I've got that line going backwards. That further depicts the mouth being open. That's the center of the body there. And look at the center of the spine coming up here. The center of the back of the fist is somewhere over here. The center of the front of the leg, somewhere here. The center of the back thigh is there. And look, we can see the side of the foot here, so we know that foot is twisting. So the center gets displaced to over there. Then we've got the heel, and then we've got the center of the foot coming back towards us. The center of his body, his spine, just comes back into view here. And the center of the back of him is there. You see that? Good. What I also do with the center line is I depict the facial features, like the eye line. I'm going to put his eye line about here. I'm going to depict the nose there. Then 2 tram lines to really designate that his mouth is wide open. There. Yeah, there. There. So now we've got the basic planning of our sketch. And you can see here, there are also some orange lines. Those are contours. Those show us the trajectory of the different parts of the body. Now, we don't need to do that for this exercise because I'm here with you. But if you get stuck on any of these exercises dealing with foreshortening, add in your trajectories as shown in the book. They will help you keep on track. But just for the sake of speed and convenience here, I won't put in the trajectories. Good. So now we've got our fundamental shapes and dimensions going on our character. Now I'm time-lapsing this. I'm recording the time, so it kind of makes my computer a little bit laggy. So next we come to a layer called detail. Now here you can see when I did the original, I was very, very sketchy. Okay, so let me zoom out. Try and get as much in view for you as possible. Good. So the first thing you can notice here is that Captain Nova has a belt. Now here is where foreshortening is very, very, very important. He has a belt and it wraps around his waist. Look at that. We've got all these contours here to help us already with shaping that belt. We've got to get this belt to wrap around his body. So there, and the belt has a top and a bottom. So give yourself 2 lines. So we've got the top of the belt and this second tram line. So it's the third line in effect. That's going to give us the guideline for how far the pouches fall. And he's got what looks like 3 pouches. So let's zoom in here, right? He's got 1, 2, 3. 1 goes around the back. Now here's where we get into trajectories, ladies and gentlemen, right? Let's really pay attention here, shall we? So let's put the first pouch here. So you can see here, we can see slightly the side of it. You can see in the better trajectory, right? So we can see the top side of it, yeah? So let's put this first pouch at this angle. Then the second pouch could be at this angle. Now we can see the thickness of the pouch here. Then the third pouch is going up and over the body. There. And now we can put in the bottom of the belt as it would be underneath. So we plotted the belt. Now he's got long pants and no shorts. Next is the boot. Can you see the boot line? Now his boot has a certain shape to it, but let's just put in a rounded shape for us. And he seems to have a pattern on the sole of his boot as well. So it's on the heel. We divide the heel. And we can see there's a pattern that goes around the heel. And the pattern goes around the lower shoe, and the shoe is also more bulbous than our basic shape. So we can take the sole of the shoe and make it more rounded. It's got a pair of Doc Martens. Right, our guest has shown up. We've got Kale in the back room. So hold on, let me invite in Kale, our ex-intern.
Hey there, Jerry. How's
See
it
you.
been?
Hi, Kale.
Sorry
Thanks
for my
joining
lateness.
us. That's all right. You can stand in the corner later on.
Awesome.
Now, the question is, okay, I sent you a copy of the exercise earlier, so
Yeah.
you know what we're doing, right?
Yes.
Right. So, okay, Kale, so you start with your skeleton, right? What we've done so far is we've done our skeleton there.
Yeah.
We fleshed out, right? We've added the dimensions, meaning we found the side of each object, and we've done the center lines. Now, we're not bothering with the contours because that's instructional. People can do that at home if they buy the book.
Yeah.
And now we're getting to the detail, and I've just put the belt in, rough sketch, and we're now going towards the boot.
Okie dokie.
So when you get to you start doing what you're doing, and if you catch up to the costume, give me a shout, and we'll have a look at how you're getting on.
Okie dokie. Sounds good.
Okay, good.
I'll work
So you can
fast.
see Caleb's all right, you work fast, sir. Let's have a look. Caleb's a brave young man. He's going up in front of the headmaster, in front of the audience. How about that?
Oh, let's see. Should I start sharing just to...
Yeah, you can start sharing your screen. I'll put it up as and when to look in on you later on.
Okay.
So you can start sharing now. And I think I can only put it on screen at certain times, but if it's there all the time, I can chop and change when I want to.
Or maybe I can do this.
The problem with StreamYard, okay, if you're watching at home, we're using a software called StreamYard. And StreamYard only allows one person to share a screen at a time. Lots of different cameras can be on at one time, but sharing screen is a bit limited. Now, you can see, I was a bit naughty here. I remember when I did this originally, the boot that I drafted was too tall, and I later had to shorten it. So I'm going to shorten it now in this planning phase. Yeah, shorter boot. Make sure it wraps around the volume, and it comes down the other side. There's a few folds at the ankle area. Good. So we got that in. And let's just kind of join up these limbs. So we put a few sinews between there. Good. And I'm going to go over what we've done previously. Join up here. And I've got to keep an eye on my layers because I've got this nasty habit of drawing on the wrong layer. Yep, that looks all in order. So now let's have a look at his gloves. Now he's got a glove. Let's look at the front. Oh, look at that. I forgot to draw his back arm. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, so sorry. Back to stage one. I bet, I'm gonna get a note later on saying you forgot the arm. I'm notorious for this. See, there's a back arm. I didn't draw that. Okay, let's put this arm in. So here it is. Behind, we draw through the object. God damn. There. Put the joint in. Then we've got the outer arm. How can I forget to draw the arm? Jeez, racing off. And I must remember that this show, with the new time slot, we're no longer limited to just 1.5 hours. We've actually got up to a couple of hours here. So slow down, boy. Slow down. So there, we've got that back fist. And we can put in the joints there. That's roughly where the finger joints go. And remember, I said I always treat the blast power as a major part of the planning. So I'm just going to drop in some contours here for where the powers would be. So now let's come back to our fleshing out layer. And let's drop in the shapes for that arm. So here, you see upper arm. Remember, brutal foreshortening. So we're going to keep it as rounded as possible. That's the tricep area. Remember what I mentioned about knowing where you're going. I'm going to put the wrist in first. Now we can put the volume of the lower arm. And I can't stress enough, you've got to make sure you get your volumes nice and large, as that's really what gives foreshortening, is volume. So here's our wrist, and we've got the fist. The fist is going away from us.
I see.
And slightly twisted, so we can put this, from this angle, it's the index finger that we're looking at. So there's the back of the fist going in there. Okay, good. Now if we come to the dimensions, let's depict where the side of this arm is. And it's about here. This is the side of his arm, there, and it comes up the back, there. Good. And in terms of center line, we can't really see the center of anything there. So now we're back to our detail. So I'm going to make my sketching. I'm going to make my sketching slightly lighter so you can really see what I'm doing. So come back to the detail. So let's look at this glove at the back. You zoom out slightly so you can see the glove goes around the back here, and it's got to hug the volume of the wrist. And there's a few folds at the wrist area. There. There. Your finger. And I remember when I did this actually, when I came to rendering, I actually added the underside of the fist, which I quite like. So here's the backhand. Good. Now let's establish his spine. You can see here. There is his back. Now here comes his next glove. Again, brutal foreshortening. So we're going to come down here with the glove. And curl under. Now it comes to a point at the back of his arm. Now we're just doing the basic detail of the costume here. So you see with the volume of the glove, it's now going to go off outside of the basic fleshing out. It's going to go outside of that. Here's our knuckles. We establish them, and we connect up the back of the fist. And there's also a bit of a bulge on the edge of the little finger. And just for the sake of this, when we render this today, I'm going to render this with a slightly different look to what's in the book, just so we have a look at something a little bit different. How about that? Isn't teacher a charitable man? Right? So there we have the glove coming in now. And to show that that glove is coming towards us, I put the stitching at this point. Good. There's the volume of our glove. Now, I can see Kale's pages there. Let me add it to the stage. Let me remove myself. Yes, Kale is indeed very fast. Okay, we can see that fist going in. Okay.
Not the best, but it's coming along.
Keep going. No, don't be scared of your foreshortening, right? Look at the width. Look at the width of the forearm as compared to the length of it. Right? Yours is more exaggerated than mine at the moment because your limb is altogether longer in comparison to the width. Right. But if you broaden the width even more, it will start to look more similar to mine if that's what you want. Right? Okay. If you see, for example, my wrist comes in further down the thumb and the back of the fist is way wider. Right? Can you see the lower forearm?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look how close it is downwards. And that's what gives you more volume if you want it.
Yeah.
But yours
Yeah,
is a different degree of foreshortening. And I can't say that it doesn't work. It's different to mine. It's different to mine, but it still works as in a forced perspective. That's the thing. I actually asked the question in the book. To what degree you force the perspective? That is an infinite question. And that's where the age-old question of like, if you can draw naturally, you might be on the spectrum. And I think that's a true part of the I think that's a true part of our autism there, right? Because this forced perspective thing is very odd. And the fact that any of us can understand it or even calculate it, you can mathematically calculate this stuff, but it's almost impossible. A lot of it's done by eye. And I think that is a bit of a spectrometer kind of question there.
Yeah,
right, we're going to get back in on the young Kara later on. Here's me back. Hey, well, we've got a few comments here. I've been busy talking, right? Who's come up there? We've got Houston, Texas David's back, right? Hello from Texas. It's after midnight here. Dave, I did mention you earlier. Your daughter sometimes joins us, and I know it's a bit late for her. So we probably lost one viewer there. But yes, we swap places with Late Night Art Attack. That's now going out at 6 p.m. We're branded as Madness Art Attack. I know it's a bit late for your daughter. Sorry about that. He says, you're a very good teacher. Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's good fun. I've had some good students over the years. I had this young student today, right? He was so good. We were doing a rotation. You know what? I'm gonna share that, because we've got a bit more time today. Hang on, let me just change. Let me resave this document as a Clip Studio format. Let me show you what I was doing with a student earlier today. He's a young kid, he's only 11. He's very sweet. And he was doing a character design. I was teaching him about rotations. But, rotations is a bit tricky, especially when you're talking about very young artists, yeah? So let me see if I've got it here close at hand that I can actually show. Okay, yes, Harvey. Okay, so what Harvey did was, I had to take a screenshot. And this was Harvey's character design. I was teaching about rotations. And the first thing that Harvey kind of got wrong was the position of the air and the trajectory of the eyes. And he did these corrections later. He got all of the corrections right. So then we went to a redesign of his character. So you can see there, Harvey's original first draft. So then Harvey, he copied me and he had to get closer to this. Right? And what he came up with was very good. He did his corrections very well. But then I had to tell his mom to buy some pens so he could do the inking. So we started on inking earlier and his inking was not bad. But yes, teaching kids like Harvey's done some good sketching as well. But then getting into things like rotation, this is very good fun, sharing this kind of knowledge. Harvey's a sweet little kid. And next week, I want to see how he comes back with his inking after buying his new pens. I told his mom to buy him some microns. So he's going to come back next week with some micron pens, man.
Oh, I love microns.
Yeah, man. Microns rule, man. Right. So where were we? Oh, yes. Foreshortening. So here we have Captain Nova's lower arm. So we can re-establish this piece of the forearm here. Then we've got the bicep. And his costume is not the most complex, but it has got insignia on it. So we're going to look in on that in a moment. So we get the chest area here. And his glove. Sorry, not his glove, his boot. Remember we've now got some extra, foot down here. And it's actually Captain Nova's boot is a very strange kind of shape. And they're not very high. So actually this original, can you see his boot here? There. I can recreate that, but you know what? Now that I'm showing his foot down here. Okay, imagine this in terms of animation. Imagine if this foot here has gone down slightly. I'm now going to do that because I'm showing the foot. I want to do something different here. So if his foot starts to lower, suddenly this gradient here becomes less intense. And his boots are quite short. So I'm now going to lessen the intensity of that and put that boot going around his upper calf there. That's an interesting edit that we're going to do for this stream. And then we drop in his leg there. And then, look, he's got big rounded boots. So I'm going to round off that boot there. Maybe I'm being a bit extravagant there. We wouldn't see the inside. It's a bit closer to the original. We can have it going in that kind of angle. Good. So now let's look at his face. Remember I mentioned the open mouth. Now we're going to draw through the object where his eyes would be, even though his masks have no eyes and they're white out. So here we've got the eye line, we've got the face shape, and we can start to put in the real shape of the face. So you know the eyes are in like a crevice. So we put that in, we bring out the cheek, we slim the jaw, and he's got a strong jawline. Here, we know the forehead is there. So his eyes are going to drop in here somewhere. And there.
No, I'm that serious. I'm that serious.
Now the face is at an angle, correct? So the nose is going to be displaced away from the center. There. And the mouth tucks in underneath. Wide open. There. And the teeth will encroach. Just lengthen that chin slightly. Good. So now we bring the jaw up behind. And the hinge of that jaw, and that mouth is wide open. So we make sure the hinge on that jaw is really open. And again, we're drawing through the object. We can't see the ear, but we put where the ear would be normally. And we've got the top of the head. There. Back of the head. And you've got a strong neck, so we join that up. So I'm going to slightly broaden his face. I'm going to bring that cheek out just a little bit more. Good. We're going to get into his costume shortly. So I think we've got the character pretty much planned out there. I want to make his face a bit bigger, actually. Let me raise those eyes slightly. Make the face a little bit bigger. There. Good. And he's got scowling expression. Nice. Okay, so now we get to the costume. So first thing, let's get the mask in. It drops down under the eyes. Actually, it's quite complex, this mask, you know. Then it goes up at the side again. It goes around the contours of the face. We know that's the side of the face there. Drops down here. And off here. Now look at the center line. That center line is going to help us with this piece of the design of the mask. A straight line comes up here. I'm drawing through the pattern. It's easier to draw through the pattern here. That goes over the top. Then we've got like an M insignia coming up here. And one going up the other side. Let's just open that up a bit more. That one goes over the far side. There it comes down the other side. And it actually joins to the eye. This character is Italian. It comes from Defenders of Europe. This was part of a Kickstarter that launched the same time as my SupaCross. I don't know if you can see behind me. I have a banner for SupaCross. Hang on. Can you see behind me, SupaCross? The same time this comic launched with THUNDERZONE was the same time Masters of Europe launched. And I took a real shining to Captain Nova's costume. I thought it was really cool. So then he's got a big N on his chest. So we can start to sketch this in. There. And for those of you just tuning in, we've got an ex-intern of mine in with us tonight, Kale.
Hey
He
guys.
works on SupaCross. Yeah, he helped do some of the inking and coloring on the SupaCross number 5 and 6. And he's dropped in tonight to draw along and show us his powers. We're gonna check in with Kale again shortly. Okay, I'm just sorting out this costume. Now he's got like a spike coming down the back of his glove. Now you see we found the center of the glove here already. So that's gonna help us draw this spike. You come down here, it's gonna go off the other side here. Then it comes in and it goes over and into the top of the glove. There. Good. Here goes our basic sketch. And I think we're there with our basic sketch. Now you can see the original, the mouth is open even more than mine. So I'm going to open my mouth even more. I'm going to take the chin down slightly. Let's exaggerate that. Don't get so conservative in your old age, boy. This man is angry. He's Captain Nova. That's better. Good. Okay, let's put in a few contours, get the expression going. I'm using the pencil function here in Eclipse Studio Paint. And the pencil is not the finest, but the action. I like the action. But to do really fine lines isn't the easiest, let's say. Okay, now here with the pattern on the head, I drew through the pattern. So we can lose that detail there now. Okay, let's get into a bit of anatomy. We've got the triceps back here. The elbow sinks into the tricep. And we've got the lower sinews of the forearm. My favorite artist of all time was a gentleman by the name of Gil Kane. And the way he would draw bicep, phenomenal. But let's look a bit at the anatomy around the neck. So you can see this drawing here that I'm doing actually is because my body was longer, I had to shorten the upper torso. So we're getting some sinews from the neck here. And down the shoulder. I'm gonna have to broaden the shoulder here. See, the trajectories are slightly different because I made the body longer. So you have to add a bit of shoulder. You get the spine coming over. And the chest muscle coming underneath from here. Anyways, we can show a little bit of the lower upper torso there. Some of the back muscle, the shoulder muscle here coming in. Good. Then that tricep comes over, bicep in front. We're going to get to this properly after this. Now the bicep eats in to the forearm. There. Good. Now I'm going to go full Gil Kane here. Okay. I'm going to bring in. I'm going to change the angle of this leg here. Stop being such a smart aleck, Jerome. Just stick to the exercise. I'm getting overexcited here. Because, you know, one slight movement in a piece of body and things can be different. I always say that the human body is the greatest piece of engineering ever perceived by Mother Nature. Right, we've got the upper leg coming in here. Look at those hamstrings, man. God damn. You must be a soccer player. Look at me using the term soccer just because I'm speaking to Americans. It's not soccer, it's bloody football.
Because I'm here, isn't it?
Yeah, because you're here. You're a bad influence, mate. And okay, you can see my boots here on the new one are much bigger. That's because I've been doing a lot of Gene Colan exercises. For all of you older viewers out there, you know who Gene Colan is. I don't expect young Kale here to know who Gene Colan is. But Gene Colan is a legendary artist from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And that man had the biggest boots known to mankind. And I've been doing a lot of tribute art to Gene Colan recently. So I've got Gene Colanitis at the moment, and I can definitely see with the way how I drew that boot just now, it's definitely been having an effect on my psyche. Okay, so I'm doing the pattern on the boot. Okay, before we get into that, let's check back in on young Kale. Let me remove myself from the stage. Are you inking already?
Oh no, it's not ink. But
Oh, that's like
I wanted to like
that's a
set up.
render, yeah?
Yeah, I didn't want to go straight to the inking just yet. I'm rendering right now, but
No.
yeah.
Oh, good. All right, nice. Yep,
Being
this is looking
speedy
nice
with
and powerful. Well done. Keep going, keep going. Yeah, we're going to check back in with you in a moment. Yeah? Okay, good. And, oh, sorry, we got a few more messages here. Text. Hello, super friends. Hello, Super Dave. Okay, Pops says, hey, Dave. Yeah, Pops is in the house. For those of you new here, Pops is the man behind the Madness Entertainment Group. That's him tuning in there. Texas Dave says football. Yeah, that would work. That would work if we spell it differently, right? Yeah, I think that could work. I can handle that. Just spell it differently. Okay, so we've got, you could say we got a lot of our basic detailing. Let's just do the boot here. So we just put the basic contours in for this. How many divisions? 1, 2, 3, 4 divisions over there. So let's divide that in half, then half again, half, half again. Good. Double tram lines. There. And sort of slight thickness. Okay, good. Double tram lines here. And it's got a thickness behind here. Nice. Okay, so now we can start to refine our sketch. So what I can do is we reaffirm the power. Then we can switch off our construction and get closer to putting in the detail. So now we don't need the skeleton anymore. We don't need the basic fleshing out because we've joined up all the limbs, etc. We don't need to see the dimensions. We've established that. And we don't need to see the center lines. So here we got our basic sketch. So you can see here from the sketch render, what we've just been doing at the same time as the detail. We did these two steps together, you could say. Now, let's look at rendering in terms of key lines. Can you see how the outer key line in this final render is thicker than the inner detail, right? So we're going to take a closer look at that. So I'm going to make another layer. And we call this RD. Oh, sorry. SR, sketch render. So if we kept our pencil nice and light, I'm going to zoom in. So let's start to recreate some of this here. And on a sketch render, you might find yourself reaffirming certain parts of your sketch even tighter. Like here, for example, on the head, I'm going to exaggerate his expression. Right, and I'm also going to ink this, not ink, Don't get your terms mixed up, boy. I'm going to render this with a slightly different attitude as compared to the original. Now, the original is what I call angular, right? But what I'm going to do is, just for the sake of demonstration purposes, is I'm going to do this render more smooth. Now, I quite like angular rendering, but I found that when I post something that's angular, it gets less likes than if the curving is there and more gentle. So beware, if you like angular kind of sketching, etc., quite often, a lot of the viewing public likes things that look a bit more natural, generally speaking. I'm completely blighted by I like a lot of things that for whatever reason, the average person is not so keen on. But it is what it is. If your favorite color is orange and it becomes an offense by death, if your favorite color is orange, you can't just make yourself like orange, hate orange suddenly. You're just unlucky. And just keep the fact that you like orange a secret. And drawing, what the problem with comics is an amalgamation of fine art and commercial art. What I mean by that is, we love to draw what we like to draw. But if you draw something and the public doesn't like it, it means that the comic isn't going to sell. That in effect means that you can't draw what you want to draw. It's a sad fact, but it is what it is. You can keep doing it, of course, and hopefully you can persuade the public to accept it one day. I mean, you never give up on your passions, but just be aware that if you're going to work for another publisher or someone else, they may ask you to adjust something in your style because they know that certain things may sell better for them than other things. And if you're an artist and a publisher asks you to do something like that, don't be offended. Don't take it personally. They may know what the market wants better than you. And they're there to make money, not stroke your ego. But I can tell you, as an ex-arrogant young git, that is easier said than done. We tend to take our artwork very personally. Someone criticizes our artwork, it's like if they criticize you personally. That's not always the case, right? A story that I like to tell was I went to the San Diego Comic Con back in 1998, and I met with a gentleman named Neil Adams, and he's a comic legend. And I was walking past his booth, and there was no one there. So I thought, I wonder if he can look at my portfolio. So I poked my head in and I said, "Excuse me, Mr. Adams, do you mind looking at my book?" And he said, "Yeah, sure, come in." Now remember, right, this is the days of no internet. Right, so I've never seen him before. I've only looked on the board and seen his name. So I was a grown man there with kids, right? I mean, I think I was in my 30s, right? But listen, once a fanboy, always a fanboy, all right? So my wife was there. She's not impressed. He's just a comic artist. I mean, the blasphemy, but that's the reality, right? She's not in awe of Mr. Adams whatsoever. So anyway, I go in there and I show him my work. And he looks at me and he goes, "Now, you need to learn how to draw." And no, I'm listening, right? Because this is Neil Adams here. I'm not arguing with him. My wife, on the other hand, sees an arrogant, rude gentleman who's putting her husband down. And in the periphery of my vision, I could see my wife pacing up and down, right? Not impressed. And I'm thinking to myself, oh no, man, don't say anything. This is Neil Adams. If he kicked me in the goal answer, I take it willingly, right? But anyway, he then went on. He went on to put his hands on my shoulders. But imagine, hang on, let me go full screen for this. I've got to show the ladies and gentlemen this, right? So imagine this, right? So imagine you're me, and I'm Neil Adams, right? The hands come on the shoulders. This is Neil Adams talking to you. That's what he did, right? And but later that day, I met with some other big Marvel names, like Chris Claremont. Some of you might have heard of him. He's responsible for a lot of the modern X-Men, as you know them. So I got in to his booth and was talking to him. So I told him about how Neil Adams scolded me. And he says to me, Neil Adams likes me. I said, why on earth would you say Neil Adams likes me? He said, first of all, he looked at your book. Secondly, he put his hands on you. What I didn't know was Neil Adams was known for being very, very harsh and not seeing anyone. That's why no one was in his booth. Everyone was scared of him. But me, coming out from Singapore, I was just too green. I didn't understand. I didn't know any, you could say I didn't know any better. And I think he appreciated the fact that I didn't know any better because, you know, maybe he would like to see people, but the thing is, I took no offense to what he said to me, but I think a lot of people, he said things like that to them. They can't take it, and they've gone back and said, don't ever go in there, he's this, he's that, and he's going to do this and that to you. Which is, if you ask someone to give you a critique, and they tell you that you can't draw, it's just too bad. Because the fact of the matter is, he was right. A lot of things that I did in that portfolio, when I look back at it now, right, was a lot of crap. Okay, not total crap, but he has very high standards. Well, he's a genius, right? And sometimes geniuses can be a bit hard on us lesser mortals. And that's the way I took it. And I think that's the way he made. He showed me certain things. He explained certain things. And upon analysis, I agreed with it. And if I thought I was perfect, why would I show him my stuff? And he gave me some sound advice there, and I went away. I practiced what he mentioned, and I think I improved as an artist after that. But I think, you know, artists can be very proud people, let's say. And I think he's done that to a lot of people in the past, and they've taken personal offense to it. Whereas I don't think you should take that stuff personally. There you are. Your Saturday evening story about Neil Adams. No, is it? No, sorry, Saturday morning. So I'm getting my time zones mixed up here. It's 2:15 p.m. here in Singapore where I am. Sorry. This time zone business can be a bit disorientating. Right, I'm busy talking. Okay, we just rendered the upper part of Captain Nova. Now, taking a closer look at his belt, I think I've forgotten something here, you know. Hang on. I'm confusing myself. Look at that. I'm so busy talking about Neil Adams, I'm ignoring my sketching. This is the back of his arm. I thought something looked wrong there. Here's his belt. Now let's put in this fine detail on the belt. And what we're going to do today, I think we can ink this and do a bit of rendering. I think we've got enough time. It's going to take some getting used to now that we have 2 hours on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along. Because normally it's only an hour and a half. But we've got a bit more time now with the time change. Good. Yeah, actually, I drew his belt with a different shape before. I'm going to adjust the shape to be more like the final render. Good. And this one is going behind. Drawing inorganic shapes on a character is fantastic. The first time I got to understand this was the first time I tried to draw a transformer. Inorganic objects. And the different detail. Really good stuff. Because if you get something off, the whole drawing goes to pieces. Get those hamstrings pumping. Outer leg. Good. And as I mentioned, I'm rendering this with a slightly different attitude. I'm being a bit more gentle, let's say, with rounded shapes. I did a drawing once on social media, and it was very angular, and I was so proud of my drawing, and it got 5 likes. I was heartbroken.
That always hurts, yeah.
But the thing is, I'm arrogant enough, right, that to think that, like, okay, if you draw something and you like it, you succeeded. Okay, here's the big discussion, right, you can have. Is when is an artist successful? Is it when he makes lots of money? Or is it when they draw something they like? Now, I think there are 2 different kinds of success. If you draw something that you like, I think you succeeded because you've done what you set out to do. Now, if no one else likes it, then you fail as a commercial artist, which is different, right? And what often messes up a lot of comic artists is comic book art, I would say, is the perfect mergence of fine art meeting commercial art. It has all the sensitivities and passion of fine art, but it plays by the rules of commercial art. And this is what makes it very confusing. Right, that's what I just mentioned about Neil Adams. If you do something personally and someone criticizes it, there's an argument that you can take that personally because it's part of your person. You know, you put your heart and soul into that piece of drawing. Someone's come and belittled it. You feel like if they're belittling you as an individual. But you know, it is what it is. And comic art is commercial art. But if you do something you set out to do, but no one likes it, you failed commercially, but you may not have failed creatively. Because we've all heard the term before, right? It was before its time. Quite often you find people doing things that later people got into. When they did it, no one could quite understand what they were doing. There's always that, you see, as well, to contend with. You might be doing something that people will like, but maybe not quite yet. Okay, so there's our render. We can switch off our detail now. There's our sketch render of Captain Nova. So we can get to some inking now. So I'm going to save this, and we're going to check in on young Kale. See what he's up to. Let me remove myself. So here's young Kale.
Yeah.
He's helped me out in the past with SupaCross issues 5 and 6 with coloring and inking. So he's joined us today as a draw-along guest. And okay, Kale, this is looking good. Now, the thing that I want you to look out for here, right?
Yes.
We're doing this as well, ladies and gentlemen, because we as artists, we all tend to make the same mistakes, right? If we're going to make a mistake, you can bet your life that someone else somewhere is doing the same thing, right? So, Kale, if I'm going to share a screen, I'm going to get you to look at something on your drawing here, yeah? Mm-hmm. So let me remove you first. Right, I want you to double check this. We can go back to this part here. You see the head,
Yes.
right? Okay. If you look here, let me get a color that's not here. Let me get green. Call this MU for markup. This, if we treat this as a fundamental shape, okay, we got a block. So a three-dimensional block, basically speaking, this is what we've got. We've got a cube, right?
Yep.
Now, what you're going to remember is that all of the lines on this side are traveling right side up, left side down. And the opposite on the other side, right side down, left side up. Now check the eye line of your character.
Yep.
Right, let's put you back on screen. Right, let me remove myself. Right, we add KO. Right.
I can see
what
that.
you've done is you've got trapped in two different trajectories, and that's why we're doing this. Right, I did this. I think every human does this. Right, remembering the fundamental, the basic shape and trajectory of what it is that we're drawing. So once you straighten those eyes, primarily your mouth is at the right perspective, or closer to it. Your chin is closer to it, but it's the eyes that went off.
Yeah.
Mainly. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll check back in on KL a bit later. Okay. So we come back to me. So let's have a look at some inking. So we come back to our sketch here. No, you know what? Hang on a second. No. Let's do a bit of rendering. Sorry. So we got our sketch render. So I'm going to do another layer now called SP for spotting. Now I've got over here the original promo of Captain Nova. Now, where is it gone? Here it is. When I did the original Captain Nova, this was it. Okay, so you can see I took a light source coming from the front fist and a backlight coming from the back fist. So when you're going to put in spotting, you've got to know where your light source is. So we're taking a light source here. Primarily, the primary light source here is going to be at the center at the bottom. See that, right? So let's start spotting. Let's start spotting our Captain Nova. So I'm going to get black. So we can put in a shadow here. And remember, when you're rendering, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, try to keep your rendering all in one direction. It looks nicer. Now again, different to in the book, you will see the final render of Captain Nova. But here, let's try a different style of rendering, right? This is what I call the gradation styling, where we're going to come out from the dark into the light. So remember, the light source is the fist, okay? So here, we're going to have this in darkness, and then it's going to start to come into the light. There. I'm going to keep a backlight from the back fist. So that means we need to leave an accent. That means an area of light on that back sinew there. So we can add a bit more darkness here. As I mentioned earlier, I've been doing a lot of Gene Colan tribute inks, and that man was a master of light and dark. And I'm still not as good at spotting as he was. Now this gauntlet, I don't want to overdo this because it's quite near the light source. So I'm going to drop in some shading there. Some behind here. And we're going to put in, what is a different color there? Okay. Okay, the color of a costume will affect the way you spot it as well. You know, a dark color, of course, will have a greater degree of shading, you could say. So I'm going to put this part here. and a bit of dark. Again behind here. The secondary light source, I'm going to give what's called a coarse accent. There's no hatching on the top side. We're going to have the backlight coming from the back fist with a definitive hard edge. So we render this back leg, come in here. Now this is catching a bit of the light coming from the front. So I'll shade here and we spot here. Oh no, I'm on the wrong layer. I've done it. Look at that. Working on the wrong layer. Absolute Nazi. You know what? I'm always lecturing my students about doing this. And here I am, live on the Maddest Entertainment Group Network, totally embarrassing myself. But lucky for me, I'm a master of clip studio art. And I can remove this very quickly. Here we go. I tell you what, right? That's what. Lack of patience. Too excited. Racing off. Okay, here we are. I've lasted it all, have I? No, there's a bit here. So I'm going to cut. And paste. And I'm going to merge that in with the spotting. There. I'm spotting on the right layer. I need to make another little soundbite warning about the dangers of rendering on the wrong layer, not paying attention. Silly boy. Okay, this back leg, I'm going to put in a little piece of spotting here. There. And here again. Oh, I've not checked on the chat for a while. Let's see if anything's coming. Okay, we're still okay there. The world's worst producer. So here, we can put some of the boot here in darkness. He's got white boots, so they can't be too heavily rendered. So I'm gonna, but it's quite the foot's in the back, trying to get that feeling really going. And here we go. Accentuate that sole. Now, sometimes shading, lighting. Okay, how's the best way to explain this? Lighting follows science. Right? If you've got a light source, there's only one place that the light can fall, given trajectories and all the rest of it. But what I would say is that a lot of lighting also can be subject to design. What I mean is you can break certain rules with lighting because it works. But if you do it in a very, very unrealistic way, it can look terrible because you're breaking the rules of light. And you could look at your drawing and think that something looks wrong and not even know what's wrong. And it's because the light source is off. You'll know it when you see it, but you might not understand what it is that you're looking at or why you think it's wrong. And quite often it's that you've done something with the lighting that's contradictory to reality. Now this part of his body is going away. I'm going to put a nice bit of shadow here. I'm going to put this left quadrant in total darkness. Under the chin as well. Putting a shadow under chin is always very nice because that pushes the head forward. There, he's got those strong sinews building up. He's Captain Nova. And okay, now we get to the backlight. Put a shadow behind here. You may wonder, this fist doesn't have much rendering because it's doing a power blast. Okay, how are we doing for time? Wow, that's 1.5 hours already.
Oh my goodness.
God, I was thinking, oh, I've got extra half an hour this week. So I'm here sort of like going on and on. I think I've got loads of time. 1.5 hours already gone. God damn. Okay, so let's exaggerate this light source coming from the front. So I'm going to put the top of the head in darkness and then bring the front into the light. Put a shadow that really gets the expression going. Shadow in the mouth. Don't want to overdo this too much. Okay, I think we can get, oh, sorry, the back arm. Okay, now this one's taking on the light source from that fist. Good. Okay, so there we've got our rendered Captain. Oh, it's boot down here. I'll put a bit of shadow here and have it coming into the light. Come into the light, boy. There. Nice. All right. Let's have a quick half an hour of inking. Do you think we can do that? Let's try. So, new layer. I call it IN for inking. So I'm going to knock these back a bit lighter. And we're going to do this with a smooth line. So here's the inking line. Okay, meanwhile, before we do that, let's check back in on young Kale. Let's see how that face is. Has come along. Yes, that's right.
A little better.
Good, that's falling better. Yeah, that's better. That's falling more of the line of the face.
Yeah.
As I said, your chin
really helps.
Yes, because your chin and lips will fall into perspective, just the eyes. We have a tendency that when we draw eyes, we always gravitate towards natural 90 degree. It's very natural. We all do it. But when we know to look out for it, all's good.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. No, I forgot to render its pouches. What the hell? Too fast, boy. All right, hang on. Let's have a look. Got to render its pouches. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at his pouches. What can we do about them? Actually, I don't want to do too much for them. Let's render his back. Let's put them in some darkness so they come forward. Let's just put a bit of shading on the parts around them, but no, I don't want to render them too much. I want them to stand out. Yeah, I don't want to do too much with them. I'm going to leave them blank for now. Just the belt part. Right. So let's get to some inking. So we're going to turn this down a bit slightly. And I'm very guilty on this stream of not zooming in tight enough on the action. See, I'm working on the Cintiq, which is pretty big. So I can be quite far away to see what I'm doing. But for you guys at home watching, the closer I get, the more interesting it is for you. So I'm going to zoom in. Toy like a toy guy. Right, so here we go. My brush. Okay, I like to work with a 6 or 7 pixel. So as I said, different to the example in the book, I'm going to get a bit smoother on this one, yeah? And smooth lines. As I mentioned before, I've done, in fact, this hand is in power. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a special effect on this. Because power is radiating from this hand, as it gets to the fingers, I'm going to do more of an impressionistic inking style because the power is obscuring the true vision of the entire of the entire fist, right? So let's try this. Let's try this. Now, you'll notice the key lines. What I mean by that is the outer line of any object is the thickest. So here, this inner detail has to be very thin because the power is causing the fist to slightly dematerialize. Like if I stretch that off, this is what I mean. All the lines are not drawn because the power is obscuring our vision. So as we get into the rest of the hand, this can be solid, but as it gets to the fist, it starts to taper out. And what is mentioned about the key line, the outer line is the thickest, and then all inner detail has to be thinner. So this is the outline of a glove. But the inner detail and a costume line, you try to keep it at a thinner velocity. Now, of course, there's many different ways of inking. It's a personal preference thing. But before digital, I always inked with the brush. So you'll find that my tendencies lean towards thick and thin, which is a very brush-like style. Whoops. I didn't actually render that part of my man 100% correctly. Now, I normally do my key lines and main detail, digitally speaking, on one layer. And the reason why I do that is actually to make coloring easier. See, if a digital colorist has large areas open, no detail, they can use the paint bucket function. They can fill it with color very quickly. So I keep my detail on a separate layer. I just put my main contours on. Now look at that mistake I made. He's got big, hefty boots, right? We should see some degree of the tread, of his boot there. Now, because the power is encroaching over here, got to be a bit more impressionistic with the foot here. Here's the power. Again, the power I would normally put on a separate layer because we might pour that out in a different color later on. But just for the sake of this stream, I'm going to put the main contours onto this layer. Good. And what I mentioned about a costume line, this is the costume insignia. It's a giant N on his chest for Captain Nova. So we keep these lines generally thinner. Good. Now we give him a strong neck. Let's give him a Mike Tyson neck. So the head comes down and then the neck goes up straight away. That neck that I had before was a bit anemic, a bit vegan. Go in, out. Yeah, I do prefer thick and thin. And we get strong, thin chin. There. We put in the basic contour of the ear. Let's get the costume going. Remember, thinner line for the costume. I'm thinking of it in terms of a coloring book. Okay, now I'm the kind of creator, I kind of go more for all ages material. Now, most of my peers are more into I dare say, more adult concepts. They draw in a more adult way. But I still remember when I was a kid and I wanted a coloring book of Captain America and Spider-Man and all the rest of it. And you'll find that classic superheroes are not the most extravagant designs. And I used to love having superhero coloring books. So if you can draw in a way that is not too overbearing for a young mind, that's what ideally I try to do with a lot of my drawing. But I know that I'm in a minority there. Sometimes us guys, as soon as we get to a certain age, we age out. We start producing stuff that we want to read as a married man at the age of 45, and we completely forget about the kids. It's always about the kids. Put the main contours in. Oh, sorry, I forgot something here. This mask actually joins through the eye. They're saying, when I first saw these characters in the Kickstarter that I was part of, I took an instant shining to Captain Nova. I thought it was very cool. Let's open that eye up a bit more, I think. And I do like to put a certain amount of mascara on my characters. I don't know why. Dark eyes always look kind of interesting. Can't go wrong with a bit of eye makeup, mate. That's what I say. And there I am going against what I said. I said I was going to keep this non-angular. And there I am making his gloves very angular. So as time is very tight, the main thing that I'm going to look for to complete today's Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along is get our main contours and inking in, and the rendering, where we saw what the rendering would be if penciled. A bit of light and dark, which I think is good. But the main thing now is to just get the main inking done. Is that backhand? Now, naughty, I should really be muting some of this hand. So hang on. Let me imagine I got my opaque paint, if I was inking traditionally. I'm going to get rid of some of these lines. And the underside here. Good. So let's put in some sinews on this neck area, on this Mike Tyson. There. And these big shoulder muscles. Your collarbone. As I mentioned earlier, the architecture of the human body is extraordinary. And there's no better way to observe this than drawing superheroes, man. Incredible stuff. That's some pretty rough inking there, Jerome Hinds. Let me open that up a bit. And as you ink, yes, you definitely can find yourself editing your penciling. In fact, sometimes inkers are called tracers. I don't know how many of you guys out there watching has ever seen a movie called Mallrats. Jay and Silent Bob. Kale, have you heard of Mallrats?
No, I haven't.
Or okay, it's a bit before your time, but Jay and Silent Bob. And Chris Rock was in this episode, was in this film. And they were at a comic convention or something. And Chris Rock met an inker. And he called him a tracer. Oh, God, it was so funny. Because, anyone who doesn't actually know anything about comics, you could be excused for thinking that an inker is a tracer. If you don't really understand what it is that their job is. And obviously, Chris Rock is a bit of a comic book geek. He knew exactly. I mean, he took the part in the movie because he is a bit of a geek like that. And he knew exactly the gravity of that line in that movie when he called that guy a tracer. Jesus, it was so funny.
It is really different. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very different. Sometimes you have to clean up the mess that the penciler done, or the editor might point out something to you that's not right. Then the editor might point out something to you that's not right that the penciler did, and the editor needs you to fix it. But yeah, to the untrained eye, could be accused of being of a tracer. Jesus, man, that was so funny. Right, so here we've got the thick, thin hack happening. And I remember as a kid, my favorite inker was a gentleman by the name of Tom Palmer. And my claim to fame is I got him to ink an alternate cover to SupaCross #3. And he used to ink in a way that his lines were very smooth. But I just couldn't get it done. And, okay, this is years before the internet, right? So to find out anything like that, it's not easy to find out stuff like that, what these guys are using back then. Unless they put it in a magazine somewhere, you're not going to know. So I was doing my art O level, and my art teacher said to me, they might be using something called a sable paintbrush. I said, and what's that? He said, a very expensive paintbrush made out of real horsehair. So I went to the shop. I went to the local art shop, Art Friend it was called. No, not Art Friend, Art Worker. Art Friend is in Singapore. No, in Reading, my hometown in England, there was a shop called Art Worker. So I go to the Art Worker and I says to them, do you have something called a sable paintbrush? And they said, yeah, sure. Let me show you. The brush costs 41 pounds. Okay, that's like maybe nearly $60 in 1979. So I reckon if you was to take into account inflation, that brush costs almost $100. No, more than $100. But anyway, turns out these guys were using brushes that cost over 20 times more than what I was using. No, I'm not going to say that just because they got better equipment than me, that's why the inking was better than mine. But fundamentally speaking, what I was trying to do probably wasn't possible. To get lines that consistent the way they were, you can't do that with a 2-pound paintbrush. But of course, I had no idea. And after I bought the brush, and after that, my inking took on a completely different look, very different. It still wasn't as good as Tom Palmer, but it was good enough. How are we doing for time? 10 minutes. 10 minutes to finish the boots. How are you doing there, Kale?
I'm doing my best.
Do your best.
Doing my best.
That's all the man can do.
It's coming together. It's coming together.
All right, good. That's all a man can do, man. Do your best. In fact, my pattern here, right, isn't even consistent on the boot. I'm just racing through it, mate. These components are meant to be roughly the same size.
Those are really difficult, yeah.
Yeah, man, I didn't measure nothing. Yee, that's pushing it up too far, boy. It's funny that there's some things that you can do that doesn't need to be 100% precise. If the attitude is correct behind it, it will not show up as glaring as you might think. Okay. Okay, we got our basic inking in. Okay, sorry, I forgot some of the muscles here. Okay, so if we switch off our rendering, let's see how our basic inking looks. Okay, so there's a fundamental inking of Captain Nova, which I'm quite happy to stop there. And this is an extract from my book, How to Draw Characters from THUNDERZONE. And this is page 89. And of course, any of you at home who might be drawing along, please do get in touch with us on Facebook and send us your, oh, I forgot part of his belt. God dang. We'd like to see your drawings. Look at that, I forgot the bottom of his belt. There, and it's going to come through here and out the other side here. That's better. Forget the sinew here. Good. So in the book, we go up to that point, but then later in the book, we show you how it appeared in the promotional art. And from that exercise, you can then add this detail if you want. That's the way the book works. It starts from some basic sketches. Then later on, you might see a chapter in the rendering, pencil rendering, like what we did here, through to inking. So I'm going to run the trailer again before the end. Let's check in on young Kale again to see how he's doing. Let me remove myself. Oh, you put your colors in.
Yeah, I did just a bit. I really
Cool.
rushed it, but yeah,
No problem.
got some in there.
That's pretty good. Oh, nice. Okay, zoom in a bit. Getting up
Yep.
close. Let's see what's going on. I like the fact it's got some power. It's got power and stress in it. Yeah, that foot's really foreshortened. Yeah, your foot's definitely bigger than mine. It's very G Colin. Okay, good stuff, Kale.
Thank you.
Where can the viewers find you? We've got quite a few people watching us at the moment, actually. Where
Yeah.
can people find you, Kale?
So I have a series on Webtoon, just Webtoon Canvas. It's called B-Man, so check that out if you'd like. And thank you for having me. It's been great. Definitely check out the drawing book. It's really helpful, and yeah, I've learned a lot from doing this stuff.
Great stuff, Kale. Excellent. So we have a look back here at what we just did here. So yeah. So the main thing that we was exploring today was basically, let's start from the beginning. We started with the skeleton. Then we did the fleshing out, fundamental shapes. As explained in the book, you always want to know where the sides of things are, the top and the front there. So we put in the dimensions here, and always there's at the beginning of the book in the first chapter, we explained the importance of finding the center of an object. If you know where the center of something is, your construction would definitely be better. Then we sketched our fundamental detail. So if I knock this back, you can see what we got into there. So that was our fundamental detail. Then we neatened that up with a sketch render, we call it. We improved on that. So then the sketching becomes more accurate. Then what we did was the inking. Also, we actually did some spotting first to practice some penciling. But most important, we got to the fundamental inking, and that's where we ended up. And I like thick, thin, outer key line to everything thicker, inner detail definitely thinner. Right, so costume lines, like the giant N on his chest. See, the line is thinner. Look at the gloves. The arrow on the back of the glove is a thinner line than the outer key line. And once you've got this sort of stuff going on, your fundamental inking will look much cleaner. And it's worth pointing out that a lot of modern comics follow more of this. They don't put in a lot of hatching. It's big open areas, and a lot of the shading is done from the coloring. I think actually it saves time. The hatching, I'm an old school kind of guy. The spotting, this kind of detail does take more time. Good. So thanks once again for joining us here on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along. I was joined by Kale Collins, right? He was an ex-intern of ours, and he helped me on SupaCross issues 5 and 6. He was a great help there with the inking and the coloring. I'm going to be back here at 6 o'clock as part of Madness Art Attack. So hopefully you can join me back here again then. I'll be here with Raoul Miss You, Raoul in T, as he's known. So I always say, what's up with thee, Mr. T? All right, so I'll be back here at 6. Kale, any last words?
That's all. Thank you very much, guys. Check out the drawing book and have yourself a great day.
Nice, man. Thank you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish off with showing you what we did on Madness Art Attack last week before I then went over to Supa-Saturdays. So here's a quick recap of Madness Art Attack. We'll be back at 6 o'clock. I run another trailer, and I'll see you back here for Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along next Saturday morning at 1 a.m. once again. Thank you very much.
Previously on Madness Art Attack.
Madness on attack. Madness on attack. Madness on attack. Madness on attack.
Paying tribute and great homage to the United States of America on its esteemed 250th birthday comes How to Draw Characters from the THUNDERZONE Activity Book, a 188-page activity book that launches on July 4th, 2026. Written and illustrated by Jerome Judge Hinds, president of the Association of Comic Artists Singapore. Comes the ultimate tribute to the birthplace that brought to the world the splendor of superheroes and comic books. Jerome is a creator and senior editor at USA-based THUNDERZONE Comics, and in the book, he shares with you the knowledge and methodologies of his work from over the past 8 years, all neatly wrapped up in a 10-chapter step-by-step tutorial. He covers full-length character construction, studies in hands and feet, secrets in foreshortening with props and weapons wielding, plus penciling techniques, inking, digital coloring, and even comic book cover layouts. It's all here and available in both soft or hardcover. And if you really can't wait to get your hands on the physical thing, there's always the digital guidebook edition available for pre-order now. How to Draw Characters from the THUNDERZONE Activity Book, with Jerome Judge Hinds launching Independence Day 2026. Exclusively available from Amazon.com and launched streaming live only on Madness Entertainment Group.
Supa-Saturdays. 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 Draw-Along. Supa-Saturdays. 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 Draw-Along.
miss the live viewing of any Meg production, you can find all our content on Roku or as a member of this channel. Madness Entertainment Group.